friends, it's a momentous day for us. It is the 210th Legal Empowerment Through Interaction lecture series. In this journey, we have been taking different vehicles driven by different men, but eminent faculty, but they all were on ground. Today, we are going to take a flight. Today, we are being guided by one among the experts in the aviation field and on a topic which we have not touched in the last 209 sessions. To introduce the topic or for the introductory remarks, we have Advocate Reghu Kumar of Thiruvanathapuram. We are privileged with the presence of Justice V. Kumar sir, Justice Ramakrishnan sir, and we have Kodo Sridharan sir, Girdhar sir from Chennai, and all of you wonderful participants. So without wasting any time, for the initial announcement before the takeoff, I hope you are all undergone the security check, your boarding pass is ready. We are going to embark on a journey of discovery and enlightenment, not on Earth. We'll have a bird's eye view, or rather a pilot's view of what's happening around. Over to you, Reghu Kumar sir.
My association with aviation was, I was the counsel for Kerala Aviation Training Academy as well as Air India. I'll just narrate an incident. The Kerala Aviation Training Academy had a Cessna aircraft, which was deputed sent to the Bangalore Air Show. The pilot and the co-pilot started, they reached there, and without not much of adequate notice, they started aerobatic maneuver. So the third maneuver, the aircraft crashed. Both the pilots lost their life. Aircraft was also lost. So the DGCA conducted a court of inquiry, and court of inquiry came to the conclusion that the accident happened after extricating from the aerobatic maneuver, and they went into a regular sortie, and there was nothing wrong, etc. So thereafter, we made a claim to the insurance company, that is for the aircraft, the pilots, etc. They repudiated the claim by saying that there is an exclusion in the insurance policy that you cannot resort to aerobatic maneuvers. So we resisted the claim by saying that the accident did not happen while during the aerobatic maneuver. So where the case started, we examined the principal of the Bangalore the flying training academy, their chief instructor. We wanted an experienced man to say about it. So we got a wing commander who was part of the aerobatic team of the Indian Air Force. He was an instructor for the Indian Air Force for about 8 years. So we examined him. He gave evidence saying that there is nothing wrong in it, etc. So after the evidence was complete, he came to me and said he was examined through commission at his home. So he came to me, Reghu Kumar, I want to speak to you in person. After all these persons leave, you remain here. So he then came to me and said, before the aircraft, where the Indian Air Force, when they resort to aerobatic maneuver, there will be a planning for almost 5 days. Each aerobatic maneuver, the height, the pilot doing this, etc., will be carefully monitored, sketched, programmed, etc. I have glanced through the whole papers of this air show. I couldn't find a single document. Say that had it been done by these in another country, all these managers of the show would have been shot dead. That is what he has said. So ultimately, we won the case. So he is saying that the aviation safety assumes importance. So he says even aerobatic maneuvers consisting of 6 persons, they will add 2 more. So if the one pilot is affected by fatigue, he will be asked to vacate and somebody else will occupy. So the man behind the machine assumes importance. The next part is very important. And he said, I've commented against your client also. So they started from Trivandrum, it's at the sea level. So the altitude meter, etc., which is subject to correction by Rao sir. So they went to Bangalore, they did not reset it. So that is on a higher altitude. The third maneuver went wrong because of the lack of space, because had it been in Trivandrum, they would have completed. So then he said, this is what is called the taxi driver's approach, because pilots have to take care of the safety. They will, and that is why they lost their life, etc. So apart from that, once Rao sir was saying, he tried to convince judges that after 15 hours of long journey, fatigue will occur and the pilots have to be withdrawn. So let them be given a leave, etc. But the judges did not agree. After having conducted this case, I have understood the difficulty, etc. Of pilots being in cockpit. It is not when you are not in a very relaxed position. So that is whatever you have stated in the earlier the speech was found to be correct, because they all tallied well with the Indian Air Force man, and was very critical about the conduct of these air shows, etc. And then one more aspect which I want to highlight is regarding last time when you were taking class for interns, there was a question that when a baggage is lost in the intermediate airport and not at the destination, where do you file the case? There was a case which I had instituted against the Sri Lankan Airways. Incident or the injury happened in Colombo Airport. Thereafter, the case was filed in Kerala. So the other side resisted by saying that the cause of action has happened in Colombo and not in Trivandrum. But I pointed out that Section 29(1) of the Carriage by Air Act permits the filing of a case in the place of destination, wherever you are, whether you started your journey from New York, and thereby it is confirmed that you can file it, despite, because that is a special law vis-a-vis the Consumer Protection Act. So anyway, hearing Rao sir is an enriching experience, a new field. Let us start, sir.
Thank you, Reghu Kumar sir.
Reghu, sir, that was indeed wonderful. And
no, Mr. Shyam, this is an opportunity for Reghu Kumar to take a class on this Carriage Air Act or something like that related to aviation.
After sir, we have entrapped
Shyam, there are better persons than.
No, Raghukumar, because you are dealing with that. At least because I don't think that in Kerala people are expert on this, except those people who are dealing with those aspects. I do not know that such an act is there, in spite of my so many years, because I don't have any opportunity to come across any such cases.
It came about after the Warsaw Convention, sir, basically.
and that particular judgment I've sent, sir.
And then the Chicago. Okay, fine. I'll have a
look. We'll do is that we'll welcome all of you into flight Letils 210 and over to the pilot.
Listen, I am, to put it very bluntly, I am not the pilot. I've been in the aviation field. I've been flying.
Wing commander.
No, wing commander. It is just that I've been struggling to get rules in place, and that is how I am here. I was flying for 30 years in the cabin, and I have interacted on both sides, so that is why I can speak on multiple subjects as far as aviation goes. Basically, aviation, as we all know, flying has been a dream of every human being that was born. And even our mythology talks about the Pushpak Viman. So flying is coming down through that time. Then we had the Greek who tried to fly by putting Icarus, who tried to fly with wax wings, flew for some time, but then he went too close to the sun, and then there was an accident. After that, we had Leonardo da Vinci. Everybody thinks only he's an artist and his paintings. But he has been, should I say, also delving into flying machines. He has designed so many flying machines. On paper, he has designed them, but he could never get them to fly. So that also gave ideas to a lot of other people to think of flying. A lot of people tried, didn't happen. And the first successful were the Wright brothers. The Wright brothers were the first people, 1902, Kitty Hawk. they flew, they flew for practically, I think, 2.5 minutes or something. Even there, the competition was who would fly the aircraft, because both brothers wanted it. And the trivia is that they tossed a coin to see who would go first. So Orville got the chance. And as in that movie, Three Idiots, the question was asked, who's the first man on the moon? So that's why Orville Wright is famous and the other brother is not. So nobody thinks of the second man. So that's it. The aviation industry in India started somewhere around 1923. It is not documented. When I say not documented, not much was given, because it was in Allahabad, where the aircraft was flown for practically 6 minutes. That was the first aircraft that flew in India. Later on, in 1932, we had the Doyen and the father of Indian aviation, G.R.D. Tata, who flew from Karachi to Bombay. He flew mail for the Imperial Airways, which later on, then he started his own airline, which became Tata Airlines. And after that, we had many airlines that came in. You had Deccan Air, you had Hindustan Air, you had Hans Air. There were many airlines that came in. But prominent amongst them was G.R.D. Tata's Tata Airline, because he done a lot for the aviation industry. In fact, to be very honest, Tata Airlines' first flight was from Bombay to Trivandrum. So Kerala has been in the aviation history as well as one of the beginners, if we literally have to talk about it. So once the aviation industry took off with so many airlines, that's when, till that point of time, we were borrowing rules from the British people. But in 1934, we came out with the Aircraft Act. The Aircraft Act gave powers to the government to form rules and regulations for flights in Air India. In India, and that's when the DGCA also came into the picture, because there were rules to be made. They needed an organization to regulate everything. So the Director General of Civil Aviation, as it is known, came into the picture. Till then, we were borrowing most of the rules from the conventions that were held. The first convention, as I said earlier, was the Warsaw Convention, that where the rules were put into place about baggages, compensation for loss of baggage. Then later on, the Warsaw Convention went on to the Tokyo Convention. In the Tokyo Convention, we got the pilot in command got the right to take legal action against unruly passenger or a passenger who didn't behave. Till then, he had nothing. He had to wait till he landed the aircraft. He couldn't restrain a passenger on board. We could just talk to him, but we couldn't get physical with him in the way to try and restrain him. Then later on, we had the Chicago Convention. The Chicago Convention went one step further, and that is where, as Reghu Kumar said, the Contract Acts and all those things came in from provisions taken from there. Now, when the private airlines started, there were too many private airlines. They were forming, they were closing. So in 1954, we came out with the Air Corporations Act, where that was the first nationalization of all the airlines. They all got merged into two corporations. They're known as the Air Corporation Act. So the Air Corporation Act merged all these companies, and only two companies were formed. One was Air India Corporation and Indian Airlines Corporation, which was IAC in those days. Then Air India went on to becoming Air India International, and so on and so forth. Now, we would wonder why there should be rules in the aviation field. Like, what is so different? There are labor laws, there are other laws that take care of most of the issues, but why should we have specific aviation laws? See, the employees in the aviation industry, especially like the pilots, the cabin crew, the engineers, these are all licensed categories by the DGCA. Unfortunately, the cabin crew didn't get licenses. The pilots got licenses. The engineers got licenses. The cabin crew were never controlled by the DGCA. Now, you'd want to know why the rules came into place for the pilots or the cabin crew is because unlike a normal office where somebody goes to work at from 9 to 5 or in shifts from 6 to 2, 2 to 10, 10 to 6 in the morning, a crew who operates the flight or is on the aircraft, his office is basically between 26,000 feet to 35,000 feet above the ground. And in the 10 hours to the 14 hours that he can work, or the 16 hours that he can work, if it is a 10-hour flight, he's crossing practically 5 time zones. And if it's a 16-hour flight, he's crossing 11 time zones, going backward. So, or forward, any which way, because India is centrally placed. So if you're moving towards Australia, you're adding to the time. If you're going towards the US, you're moving backward in time. So that is exactly why the rules came into place. Because also in the aircraft, the oxygen pressure or the pressure of the aircraft is maintained as though the aircraft is at approximately 14,000 feet. So there is a limited quantity of oxygen circulating, because at 14,000 feet, oxygen is depleted. You can see mountaineers when they go on their mountain peak, also when they go higher, they carry oxygen. That's one of the reasons. We also carry oxygen, so that's not, you need not be worried about that. So that is why the rules came into place. And then after crossing so many time zones, what should be the rest given to the crew? Because like I said, I'm not at the same time zone as the other employees in any other field are working. We've already crossed time zone. Like a simple example is, like I take off from Bombay at 7:30 in the morning. It's breakfast time. By the time I land into London, it's 7:30 in the morning. There is breakfast time there. But my body clock and my body time is like, is lunch and then moving on towards brunch. So that's another problem. Same thing happens when we fly to New York. Like I might leave in the night or morning 5 o'clock from here, and I land into New York at 5 o'clock. But it's practically 16 to 24 hours that I have crossed. So you see, my body clock is moving backward 24 hours. So I need time. As they call it in aviation parlance, it is jet lag, which you all feel when you fly. I mean, even though you're not working on the aircraft and you're even traveling as a passenger, you know that when you go to that destination, it takes you at least 2 or 3 days to recuperate. So imagine if a crew is working, how much more time would it take for him to recuperate, because the fatigue is already there on him. So that is why these rules had to be put into place. So the rules that were put into place for the crew operating the flights, the pilot could only fly for 10 hours flight time on a small and medium range sectors. And then we could fly between 14 to 16 hours on a long range sector. Then the DGC also came up with a rule that you could fly for a maximum of 125 hours in a month. And that 125 hours was the flight time. And the maximum permissible was 1,000 hours in 1 year. So if you break it down, it is an average of around 80 hours in a month is what a crew member can fly. 80 to 85 hours roughly is how the DGCA has sought to cap the flying of the crew. Having said that, a lot of practical problems will arise and have arisen. Till around 2010, when we talk of the cabin crew, they were governed by the labor laws, which was the bilateral agreement between the operator and the employees and the cabin crew. Whereas after 2010, for some unknown reason, the DGCA started issuing rules for cabin crew, trying to bypass the labor law, because that is what most of the operators wanted. They didn't want the labor laws to be effective. They wanted the regulator to frame rules. But it came to a point where we wondered whether the regulator had the powers. So when we studied the Aircraft Act and the aircraft rule, we found that the regulator did not have the powers to frame rules for the cabin crew. But they were issuing rules and it was being bypassed. So we were working a lot on that as to how we can control this, because what was happening was, like, if you read the Aircraft Act, Rule 38B is a rule that says that for every 50 passengers, there should be one cabin crew on board. So, but there is a rider to it, which is 38B clause 2, which says for every takeoff and landing, every door has to be manned. So I'll give you a simple example. If I go by the first rule of one crew member for every 50 passengers, on a present aircraft that is flying, the 777-300, it has got 10 doors, but it carries 300 passengers. So the operator would come and say that I only need 7 crew. But if you went with 7 crew for takeoff and landing, you would have 3 doors left unmanned. So that created a safety problem. So we had to go back to the regulator and tell him, how are you permitting this? So then the regulator also agreed with us. It was their goodness that they agreed with us, and they said, okay, the minimum we will now of cabin crew required on board will be the number of floor level doors. You see, here also they played with words. Now they say if the door of any aircraft is around 4 to 6 inches above the floor level, it's not a floor level exit. So that was another conundrum which we couldn't understand. But then the DGCA or the regulator, being the regulator, we took it at the interpretation of the rule. So we again told them, okay, how are we doing this? Then then we showed them how operators were shortchanging us. Now what happens is, let us say you need 10 crew on an aircraft because of the 10 doors that are there. If for some reason a crew is not available, the airline has to take a penalty on the number of seats. So for every crew shot, 50 passengers have to be disembarked if you have a full flight. You see, the cabin crew, the pilots are very professional. Let me tell you, the Indian pilots are one of the best in the world. We can compare them to the best in the world. There's absolutely no doubt about it. But what we forget is when the aircraft lands on ground or on water, whatever be the situation, the personnel that are going to take care of you are the cabin crew. So your life is in their hands once the aircraft lands. If the aircraft doesn't land, that's God's wish. But if it lands, you would need, and the cabin crew of any airline is trained to evacuate all the passengers with half the number of doors available in 90 seconds. I repeat, in 90 seconds, that crew has to evacuate all the passengers, because that is the time frame given, so that if there's a major damage within the 90 seconds, you can, get over it. Now, when you evacuate through the doors, each door carries a slide and a slide raft, the floor level doors. The offwing, which is the doors that are around 6 feet above the ground, those are known as offwing because those doors are normally around the wing area. Because the wings are there outside, they're not at floor level, but they carry a slide. They don't carry a raft. Whereas the other doors is a multiple use. It's a slide come raft. If it's land, it will be a slide. If you land onto water, it will be a raft. It will be a literal raft, which we can also have canopies when you move away after we exit. And those slide rafts, the crew has to, on an evacuation command. Earlier, we used to get a command from the cockpit and the cabin crew had to evacuate the passengers. But now it has been found that sometimes the cockpit can't see behind, so they don't know what are the conditions outside. So they leave it to the cabin crew. So the cabin crew, before opening a door, has to understand what are the the conditions outside. Like there could be a tree blocking it, or a wing part could be there. You could not be using that door. So the cabin crew cannot leave that door unattended. They have to wait at that door and redirect the passengers to the other exits. So the importance of having crew at the floor level or the minimum crew at the floor level is most paramount. And if you go by the regulators' norms, they always say minimum crew required. So if there is a minimum, the corollary is there has to be a maximum. You see, till 91, till the private airlines came in or the low-cost carriers came in, we were all scheduled airlines. And scheduled airlines, when they operated a flight during the timings, we had to serve meals. So if you had the minimum crew and you also asked them to conduct a meal service, the meal service on scheduled airlines are elaborate, depending on the class, but in any class, even if you take the economy class, it is elaborate in the sense like it takes practically 1 hour to do a zone. The aircraft is divided into 5 zones, so it takes 1 hour and you're working, you're serving, you're taking back. So fatigue is there on the minimum crew. So this issue was also raised with the DGCA, saying, sir, with minimum crew, if you're doing service, in fact, if you read the DGCA cars, it always goes to show that the cabin crew perform 2 distinct functions. So if I perform, one is flight safety and the other is service. So it goes without saying that I would need additional crew for service. But that has not been provided for, and at every time we raise this issue with the operator, I mean the regulator, like they said, this is the operator's problem. No, operator's problem. But it cannot be the operator's problem, because in case of an eventuality, it is the crew and the passenger flight safety that is going to suffer. Because if the crew is not up to mark for an evacuation, even that 5 to 7 seconds is going to cost lives. Like if we go, when the crew join the airline, 3 months is the period for their flight safety training, all the training included. Then every year we go for a refresher, like firefighting, everything is taught. So when you walk into the airport, like most of us are looking out for a beautiful woman, a good-looking woman, a good-looking guy, a muscular guy, a hunk. But we forget that basically they are there to save your life. Looks don't matter when your life is at stake. So looks are an added advantage, but basically what you are trained for is to save somebody's life within that 90-second window. Sometimes like the slide draft is supposed to open when the door opens in automatic, but it doesn't happen because there could be a malfunction. So you have to do it manually. That will add a few seconds to the evacuation. So all this presence of mind that if the automation has not worked, how to get onto the manual side, your mind has to be alert at all times. And that is why regulations play a very important role. So looking at that, like we have been arguing, trying to tell the regulator that there are so many issues that need to be addressed. But unfortunately, the regulator seems to be giving a deaf eye, whereby then we have no choice but to take it onto the judicial side, on the civil side. Because to be very honest with you, when the private airlines came in, the motive was profit, and the motive of profit was at the cost of flight safety. And that is where this concept of fly with minimum crew arose. That is why if you see on a low-cost carrier, you will only have 4 cabin crew. But if you take a scheduled flight airline, you might find 5 or 6 at times, because they factor in the service. And this issue was also taken up in 1972 before the tribunal, which passed an award, wherein because at that time there was only 2 airlines flying, so the presiding officer asked, okay, for 200 passengers, how many crew? So the airline replied saying, for 200 passengers, we need 11 crew at least. So now you imagine that on a 300 or on a jumbo jet that came in later, if there are 400 passengers, So you need at least 22 crew. And if you look at the way the aircraft is designed, the crew seats are designed, you will find that at every exit, there are, like even today, if you fly on any of the low-cost carriers, the off-wing exit, you will find a crew seat there, but you will not find the crew there. This is the cost cutting. And that is why then the crew brief you, sir, in case there's an accident, you look outside, you open. But honestly, tell me, how many passengers would be brave enough to, like when there's an accident, to their mind to function? So many of us freeze. And if there is nobody at that door, you're going to have problems. And we have taken up this issue a number of times with the regulator. In fact, the regulator came out with an amendment to Rule 32B2. And it said that, yes, if the manufacturer has given seats for crew, all the seats that are provided by the manufacturer need to be occupied. And that would be the minimum crew. But unfortunately, the pressure on them came so much that they withdrew the amendment. They withdrew the draft. The draft didn't get implemented. Then in 2010, in 2010, we got one of the operators brought in this 777-300. Now they did not have beds, bunker beds for the cabin crew. They had bunker beds for the operating the pilots. So we took it to the regulator saying, how can the cabin crew not have a horizontal rest on a 16-hour? Because those aircrafts were doing 14 to 16 hours flight time and 18 to 20 hours duty time. So we said, how can? So there was a meeting held with the regulator, and the regulator asked the operator as to how are you operating these aircraft without bunker beds on flights beyond 11 hours of flight time. So the operator turned around and said, sir, then we'll make alternate arrangements and we'll give them seats in the executive class. We don't mind, but because you need to have horizontal rest. After that meeting in 2010, we were surprised that in 2014, the regulator came up with a rule that if you don't have bunker beds for the crew, it's perfectly okay. But after they get off from the aircraft, you give them additional rest. It doesn't make sense that I need the rest on board so that I'm not fatigued. But you're now saying that the operator can give me rest outside the aircraft. In fact, in 2014, they came out with the rule that the operators operating to Australia cannot do 2 landings. Like on the long range, like again, if you're doing a short range to a medium range flight, that is between 0 to 10 hours, the maximum permissible is 3 landings and 3 takeoffs. Because every time you land and take off, it takes a toll on your body because the pressurization and the depressurization of the aircraft. Like I said, even though you're at 36,000 feet, the pressure in the aircraft is maintained at 14,000 feet. So every time you land and you take off, the pressurization will affect you. And if you want to test what toll it takes on your body, the regular flyers, kindly carry half a bottle of mineral water. Take a bottle of mineral water half filled. And every time you land and you take off, have a look at that bottle. You can literally see it sucking in and sucking out. And that is exactly what happens to all your organs in your stomach when the pressurization takes place and the depressurization takes place. It plays havoc because for a passenger, he gets off at the first stage, so he's perfectly okay. But imagine that the crew have to go through this on 3 takeoffs and 3 landings. So that's why it's capped. And on the long range flights, it was capped at only 1 takeoff and 1 landing. If there was a medical emergency or whatever it is, like you can land and try and get back. If you can get airborne before the duty time comes in, it would be very good for you. So these were the rules that were put into place. But then you had operators who would, like, if the duty time had to be extended, they'd simply issue a circular. We spoke to DGCA. DGCA has told us that your duty time is extended. So we have, under RTI, we asked the operator, how many dispensations have you given? To which the regulator then wrote back saying that, we've rarely given dispensation because they have never approached us. So you see, what happens is the operators are only concerned. The operators are only concerned with their profit. Like, they don't want to give the crew, because what happens if you are diverted for a medical reason and you have to stay back, then you have to make hotel accommodation arrangements for all the passengers, the crew. You have to give minimum rest to the crew. So they just come back. They just say, okay, we extended by 2 hours, but they don't understand that by extending that by 2 hours, the fatigue factor setting in, just as Mr. Reghu Kumar said, the fatigue factor will set in. It's a human body. It's not a machine. Even machines are guaranteed to work for up to a certain hours. So we have worked on that. Now, then, because we kept insisting, then we came back to the regulator, and we said that if you fly in something called the window of Cardian low, that is the time period between 2 and 6 in the morning, midnight 2 to early morning 6, that it puts an extra fatigue on your body. So if you're flying at that time, normally an extra rest is given to you by rule. So see, the thing is, the aviation, the industry has prepared rules, they prepared laws. So those laws have to be amended from time to time. Like now, like I've told you about this. Like, we've had the first disaster, aviation disaster, was again with the Orville brothers, the Wright brothers. In 1904, they crashed when they were demonstrating their aircraft to the American Air Force at that point of time, or the Army at that point of time. And both of them suffered deaths, and that is what it is. So the DGCA rule, these are the rules. What is aviation law is very simple. The rules required to fly, the rules made taking into consideration the situations, the requirement, because every country starts at a different time zone. So coming back to that, then the fatigue factor, how it plays a very important role. If you go into history of aviation, the biggest man-made disaster took place on an island, a Spanish island called Tenerife, wherein because of some terrorist activity at another airport where they were supposed to land, they couldn't land there. And since they couldn't land there, they were all diverted to this island, Tenerife. It's a very small airport. But because of this situation, there were so many aircrafts on ground that, everybody was fatigued. They were sitting there, they were fatigued. So when the time came, when the situation became normal at the other airports, everybody wanted to move out of Tenerife. Now, Tenerife was a very complicated runway, single runway, and it was a concave runway. So if you were at one end of the runway, you couldn't see what was happening at the other end of the runway. But since everybody was in a hurry to leave, ATC was giving permission in such a manner that they used to tell one aircraft, you go to one end of the aircraft, one end of the runway, and wait for permission to take off. And the second aircraft would be told that you go to the other end and you take off. So in this fatigue that set in, there was a communication gap between the pilot manning the KLM Dutch flight. He was under the impression that he was given clearance to take off. So he went to the end of the runway, he started taxiing, he took off, there was a Pan Am aircraft that had actually got clearance to take off. The Pan Am aircraft was also taxiing to take off. This KLM pilot also was taxiing to take off. And the KLM pilot took the top of the Pan Am aircraft and took off. It was the biggest man-made disaster. We had 538 fatalities. It was only after that we decided to have a program for the pilots known as the crew resource management. In the crew resource management, it is basically communication, because we have to understand one thing. We come with different, cultures. Like in Japan, like you cannot think of a younger generation talking back to the elder generation. I mean, that goes even in India. Like if our parents or somebody elderly told us, like, this is the law, you had to follow it, whether you liked it or no. But they felt that became a handicap in the cockpit. That became a very big handicap in the cockpit. Because if the first officer wouldn't even raise his voice to tell the captain, like that is what happened on the KLM flight. The first officer could not raise his voice and tell the captain that we haven't got clearance to take off. So sir, we need to wait. But he didn't wait. So that is how the accidents takes place. I mean, this is in any given situation, but this is how this accident took place. You see, like we all are like when the 9/11 happened, we were all thrilled. I mean, we were all devastated. Well, I wouldn't say thrilled, but we were devastated that an aircraft was being used as a weapon of mass destruction. But if you go and look into history, India was the first victim of an aircraft trying to be used as a weapon of mass destruction. This happened in 1985. We had an Air India flight that was flying from Toronto to Montreal and then on to London.
Hijacked.
No, it was not hijacked. The aircraft took off from Montreal, and just 1.5 hours before landing into London, over Ireland, which is a place known as Cork Island, the aircraft just blew up out of the sky. It just disappeared from the sky. And it was a very big conundrum for everybody as to how this aircraft, vanished. And later on, when a couple of hours later, they realized that there was another bomb placed for another Japan Airlines aircraft in Tokyo. Apparently, this baggage came from Tokyo to Montreal and on its way to London. So, unfortunately, that bomb also did not go off in the airport. Had it gone off in the airport with the fueling and all taking place, it would be a very big problem. It would be a major disaster. But Japan does not believe in daylight saving. So they go by the standard clock. So because of which that bomb exploded 1 hour before its time. So it happened outside when it was kept in the baggage hold area away from the airport. That thing happened. I mean, they lost lives of the ground workers. 5 or 6 workers died there. But Air India was the biggest casualty. And we lost this thing. And then it was later on found that it was the 1984 Sikh riots that had triggered the Khalistanis, and the Khalistanis in Canada had worked on doing this, is what has come up in the investigation that took place. So that is when the Bureau of Civil Aviation Security became an independent body in India. Till then it was under the DGCA. So this is a body that done everything, that used to take care of the security, the X-ray, how the baggages are to be checked, what is to be checked, how it is to be checked, how you can identify it in an X-ray. The training was given by the BCAS, as it is shortly known. So over a period of time, like I said, the Air Corporation Act came into place. And then in 1994, the government of India decided to repeal the Air Corporation Act. That was the first precursor to privatization. Because the act, the 94 Repeal Act moved out both these companies from corporations and they became companies, with the headquarters being in Delhi, Gurgaon. So the idea was that. Now, even when these rules, the Repeal Act came into place, the government forgot to say that the regulations prepared by the government would be protected. So when they came out from the Corporation into the Companies Act, then they automatically got bound by the Model Standing Orders Act. And the service regulations that were prepared under the corporation didn't survive. But government took the plea that no, they survived by Repeal Act, because the Repeal Act it survived, but it didn't survive. Like the unions in that or with that operator took it to the Supreme. It went right up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court also said, now that you are a company, you are now governed by the Employees Model Standing Orders Act. So that is how that. So sometimes when we make rules, also the government is not thinking on a lot of things. You see, like the DGCA itself on number of occasions has always said that, cabin crew are unique among airline personnel because they essentially have two distinct. So even now, then, like I said, in 2010 it happened. In 2010 also we brought it to the notice of the regulator that even though you are saying that rules have to be followed, when the 9/11 happened, the DGCA came up with a rule that if the pilot came out of the cockpit to even use the toilet, cabin crew had to go and sit in the cockpit, and one crew had to guard the entryway to the cockpit. So now you imagine you just have minimum crew of 10, 2 are now put there, and if there's an eventuality, what is going to happen? So we brought it to the notice of the regulator. So the regulator at the same time said that no, that's again an operator's prerogative. How can a mandatory requirement of the law be an operator's prerogative? So we've been bringing this up at every forum possible, and that is how slowly rules were changing. Otherwise, had they not been, you today have only, like I said, they would have gone by the rule of one cabin crew for 50 passengers. So that is exactly why the aviation laws, the aviation rules, the Aircraft Act, the aircraft rules play a very important part. Today, if there is, like, we are all members of ICAO. So whether we like it or not, we have to adapt to whatever rules that the ICAO prescribes. We have absolutely no thing. Yeah. This is a letter where we had a meeting with the DGCA, and if you read agenda point 4, the regulator asked, how is an operator usage of aircraft without sleeping bunks, lack of resting facilities, reduction in minimum number of crew, non-maintenance of rest period log. So the operator then agreed, but having agreed, it didn't follow it through. And neither did the regulator bother to find out whether these things were being followed. Like, see, this is one of the circulars issued by the operator. Let's take the Boeing 747-400, which I was talking to you. It had 400 passengers, and it's got 12 doors. So Air India says, the operator says you can operate it with 11 a crew, but there are 12 doors. So when we again brought it to the notice of the DGCA, and then the DGCA issued a letter to the operator saying, how are you doing this? But the problem lies is that there is no penal action taken by the regulator on the operator. And that is exactly where the problem lies. Like here you can see, this is an amendment to the Rule 38B that was proposed by the DGCA. And rule number 2 provided that in case of multiple aisles, single or multi-deck, at least one crew member for each floor level exit, and for the purpose of certification, if any higher number of crew member is required to conduct emergency evacuation demonstrations, then the number of crew members that number of crew members should be carried on board. You see, I mean, the operator is only looking to cutting corners, and that is where the problem lies. Like we've had many accidents after that. Like the last one that took place where everybody got saved barring with injuries was what happened in New York. When a US Airways took off from New York airport, and they were bird hit and both the engines failed. So he tried see, the pilot now he has to think. He's lost 2 engines. He needs to know what he's going to do. So he looked at the alternate airports, and the ATCs gave clearance to him to move to alternate airports. But he ultimately realized that he would not be able to reach any of those airports. So the only thing he decided was that I will land on the water, the Hudson River that connects New Jersey and New York. He landed on water, and lives were saved. And when the NTSB board conducted the investigation, they were of the opinion that this was a pilot error and that he could go back and land at any airport. But luckily, since the pilot was alive, he went and told them, look, no, it doesn't work that way. So they said, come on, let's go back. And they done a simulation. And in the simulation, they found out that that was exactly what he had done was exact textbook procedure. He had not wavered even a millimeter from the textbook. And that is how he could save those lives. In fact, there's a movie directed by Clint Eastwood and Tom Hanks. The movie's name is Sully because the pilot's nickname was Sully. If you see it, you can see the man-machine interface. We are so enamored by machines, but the human brain is much faster and takes decisions faster in a situation. And this incident proved that a lot. So from 2010 till here, these are a few pictures. You can see that, he's trying to come in there. He took off the birds. There's the bird hit. And these are actual pictures. Let me tell you, these are actual pictures. Because other aircraft flying in that vicinity have taken photographs. So what you're seeing is actual pictures of what took place or what happened on that fateful day. And in fact, the pilot fulfilled his duty to the T is that after everybody was evacuated, he took a round of the aircraft from the tip to the toe to see that nobody was left on board. And that's when he evacuated from the aircraft. It's not that it happens everything. Like there are pilot errors. Like we discussed the crew resource management. If you take off one of the operators' flight that happened in Mangalore. See, Mangalore airport is a very dicey airport. It's called a tabletop airport. There are only 3 such kind of airports. One is Mangalore, one is Kozhikode, and one is Lingpui. Okay, and these are tabletop. It doesn't leave much scope for error of judgments. So if you look at it, the Mangalore crash again was a human error. Fatigue factor had come in. The pilot done 2 go-arounds, and third he decided to land. See, so once he decided to land, he overshot the runway, went into the valley, and the disaster took place. Like even Calicut, we are waiting for the report. Oh, Kohikode, I'm sorry. I'm speaking to the Keralites, so I need to be careful.
Both are correct. Both are interchangeably used.
So the thing is, we are waiting for the report as to why it took place. I mean, in fact, like even the medicals for cabin crew. In fact, we challenged the power of the DGCA to issue any notifications to the cabin crew. And the Honorable Delhi High Court held that the DGCA did not have powers till the amendment came on 26th of September 2016. Like here also, we under RTI, we had asked, okay, where is the licensing for the cabin crew? So they said the cabin crew need not be licensed. But if I have to undergo a medical, the cabin crew has to undergo a medical. He has to fill up a form known as 34B. Shyam says the next slide. No, I think it's gone below. No, one more. Move one more forward. One more forward, sir. I think something has happened. Yeah. No. I will come to it. This is the form. The cabin crew has to fill up this form. Now, in this form, it asks for a license number. I don't have a license. The cabin crew don't have a license number. So the regulator issues a car on training and licensing, says cabin crew are not licensed, but for medicals I have to go, if I have to do anything, and the medical, the form says medical examination report for initial issue of aviation licenses. So without issuing me a license, you want me to fill up a form. So we asked the regulator, how are you doing something like this? So the problem, basic problem that lies here is that the regulator is very lackadaisical. And because that was happening, a bill was passed to make the DGCA an autonomous body. Yeah, this is the judgment, sir. This is the judgment of the Delhi High Court, which clearly said that after 2016, the DGCA did not have any powers to give any dispensation, either with regard to flight duty timings. This is the original 42A, sir. This gave the pilots, the DGCA the power to issue rules, make rules for the pilots. It's only on 16th, says the next slide. The next slide says that by virtue here now it has been amended to add cabin crew to it, because we were raising issues. So the operator forced the regulator to get us under the ambit of the regulator. So to circumvent the labor laws. And that is when the court held. Thus, upon the amended Rule 48 taking effect on 16 September 2016, no discretion whatsoever survived with the Director General to permit any exemption or variation from the stipulation of the maximum flight time and minimum rest time which has been prescribed. The legislature also took away the prescription of the maximum of 125 hours and made a specific to maximum limits of flight time, flight duty period and duty period of a crew member, and also minimum rest period. Despite this, the regulator insists. That's why it says, in light of the above discussion, there is substance in the submission of the petitioner that the Director General of Civil Aviation has no authority whatsoever to grant any exemption or variation from the maximum limit of flight time, flight duty period, as well as the minimum rest period. Because what would happen is operators would just ask and they would grant. I have the power. For a person who's sitting practically 1,000 or 8,000 miles away, how is he going to understand what is my fatigue factor? But he says, okay, you take the dispensation. So 4 hours, extension up to 4 hours was granted. So imagine that I've flown for 22 hours or worked for 22 hours, and then my duty time is again extended by 4 hours. So it makes it 26 hours. What is the fatigue factor on a human body? Any body. I'm not talking of the crew. I'm not talking of anything. I'm talking of, look at it on a human body. Which man can work for 26 hours continuously? Even if you give him a break of 4 hours in between. take away 4 hours, 22 hours. Which law permits it? You see, so that is when the bill has been passed, where the DGCA would be known as the Civil Aviation Authority. And it would be an autonomous body. But this is only on paper. It is seldom followed. Like, I mean, let me tell you, the crew are doing yeoman service in the Vande Bharat flights. But to circumvent this rule where the DGCA did not have powers to extend the duty time, can you imagine the operator is making the crew sign a form that he's consenting on his own free will to extend his duty time? But tomorrow if there's an accident and that person loses his life, he will not be entitled to even a single naya paisa of compensation because he, contrary to the rules, has extended the duty time of his own volition. You see, we are, none of us are proactive. All of us are reactive. Like I said, it was the Chicago Convention, where the earlier what used to happen is the insurance for the crew was decided by the operator. Whereas then the ICAO said, no, nothing doing. They've called it as 1 lakh SDRs. SDRs means special drawing rights. So special drawing rights was taken to be as 0.82 grams of the value of gold on that particular day, and that was equal to roughly $1. So imagine that if I die on a crash, I get 75 lakhs. But if I sign that violation or the consent form, I will get 0 on my death. Because the insurance company is bound to take the plea that this flight exceeded his duty time and who gave him sanction to operate this flight. So we've been fighting, we've been bringing this up time and again with the regulator, and we have failed miserably. I mean, there have been so many violations. Like somebody put up a question, can we take it to court? Yes, sir, we can take it to court. We have taken it to court. We filed a writ petition in 2013. And the first hearing of that writ petition took place in 2017. 33 mentions were overlooked. And in 2017, the Honorable Bombay High Court Division Bench agreed with us that we had given documented violations. Then it told the operator that and DGCA that you kindly file how many violations took place after 2013. And till today, nobody has filed, because, like as I said, till 2016, the DGCA did not have powers to make rules. So they were in a soup. So if they filed their reply, it would be perjury. So it is languishing. 2019, when they came up, Justice Gawai said it is unfortunate that for 5 years there is no reply by the respondents. We have taken it to, I mean, civility has not worked. Like I said, in 2014, an operator has operated 750 flights, not 1, not 2, 750 flights in violation of rules, documented violations. Sir, Shyam said that RTA that you were showing.
Yes.
That is the one. DGCA agrees that they got complaints, but it says that we have not acted on it. Can you imagine a regulator saying that they have not acted on violations and complaints of violations? Sir, higher, I think. Sir. Yes, this is the one. 49, sir. 49. Oh, so, no, sorry, sir. 46, 47.
Lower.
No, 45. 45, sir.
Above.
Next. Yes. Now look at this. I would like to know with regard to flight operated on the Australia, Delhi, Melbourne, Delhi sector, like whether there is any dispensation given the extension of FDTL beyond 16 hours, permission for 2 landings for the same set of crew or any other. The DGCA says no dispensation has been given. And till today, this operator has operated 750 flights to Australia. And 4 employees have lost their job this year. This is DGCA's reply. No such specific approval is given to Air India. No such specific was given to Air India. Data sought from, you're talking of data sought from on assessment on 2 landings. In spite of complaints to you, this is in 2015. We have complained in 2014. So for 1 year, the regulator DGCA was sleeping. And that this is one of the reasons they are not able to file their reply in the Bombay High Court. Because what are they going to say? They allowed 2 lakh lives were endangered, sir, on these flights. Just for profit and just for promotion of certain officials. And 4 employees who took up this matter had to lose their jobs. There is no consistency with the regulator. We've been breaking our heads and they couldn't care less. If you want to show how disrespectful the DGCA is, when the Vande Bharat flight started, there was a petition filed in the Bombay High Court. The division bench held that all flights were in violation, that they had no permission to fly. Can you believe it? The order was passed at 2:30 in the afternoon. 5:30 DGCA came up with a circular saying we are now giving them permission. See how fast the regulator works. But violations been taking on from 2010 till today. The DGCA has not acted. They have not reacted. There's no penal action taken. The Aircraft Act provides for penal action, but there is no action taken. You go to the regulator, you talk to him, he will tell you one thing, and if the operator goes, he will change this topic immediately. We have given a list of chronology of how rules have been just been given like chocolates for the asking by an operator. With rules being in place, they are not being followed. And that is the irony of what is happening today. Then what is the point in making rules? I mean, first thing is, there are questions coming in, which I think I'll take later. So there are so many issues that we've taken up from DGCA. There are so many violations. I mean, nothing is being addressed. We have to take it to court. I mean, the irony is that they are not even worried. They're not even scared of courts. They don't even blink an eyelid in misleading courts. This has been a journey for the last 15 years. We've been struggling to get the Aviation Act into place, the aviation rules into place, the aviation laws into place. When I talk of aviation laws, I not only talk of us as signatories to ICAO. Follow what your counterparts are following. The European authority is the EASA, the British is the Civil Aviation Authority, the Canadian is the CASA. They all have places. Singapore is a strict country. It follows its rules. Why is it that only in here that we have to fight each and every day to evolve? I can understand, honestly speaking, there are no scientific studies undertaken by DGCA. The DGCA does not have manpower of their own. So they take manpower from the aviation industry, from the airlines, from the operators. And who go there are all management cadre from these operators. Are they, and they go there for deputation on 3 years. So in the 3 years, if they don't toe the management line on DGCA, they don't get to come back to the airline. So yes, sir.
Rao sir, could you please touch upon two more aspects? I mean,
Yes, sir.
the concerns regarding DGCA that we do appreciate. I mean, much questions. I mean, even on SMS and WhatsApp is coming on two aspects. If you could just touch upon that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Number one concern is what is this special drawing rights? We are almost 90% of us are having no clue, except for we know that SDR we used to say. And how do you link it with two aspects, sir? Number one, loss of baggage. Is having declaration any consequence? Like, I mean,
No,
I did not declare anything. I will just put across the concerns. Number one. Number two is accidents. Accidents in flight I can understand, but while boarding, just suppose that the ladder was not placed properly, somebody falls off, something like that. Where do we go and things like? If you could just give a guidance on this in the next 5 minutes, that'll be very helpful to the platform.
See, the SDR came about because they wanted a common value. Life was given a common value. You see, because what used to happen is, like, say, India would not insure its crew for 1 crore. It would just, like today, the crew operating the Vande Bharat flights on the COVID-19, the ex gratia given is only 10 lakhs. I don't get the 1 lakh SDR. So the SDR was a concept that came up in the Chicago Convention that said that even for baggage, the SDR came in even for baggage, where 1,211 is the amount for the baggage. Earlier, the Warsaw said based on the weight. So for every kilo,
Montreal and all those.
Yeah, all those things. So what Warsaw said was that you pay by kilo, not the contents of the suitcase. And that is why if you buy a ticket, you will get that underline below. Do not place valuables in your checked-in baggage. One thing is pilferage is one problem. The other is the company will not compensate you for that loss.
Carry
Earlier.
bricks.
Will
To carry bricks.
I'm sorry. Yes, sir.
Will
Carry bricks. That it will have more weight.
But then low-cost carrier will charge you excess baggage for that, sir.
That is not worth it, sir. Ramkumar, sir.
Yes, sir.
No.
Sorry, Shyam, sir, you were saying
he is
something.
telling about something, not the brick, as you say.
The gold bricks. Yeah, I know that. Yeah, I know, sir. So
I was on the point whether declaration changes anything, because I declare such and such valuables, costly things are there. Will it change anything if the baggage is lost?
No,
Is
sir.
Is it not there any insurance provision as in the Carriers Act where you can have an independent insurance for carrying valuables?
No, that you have to take it individually, sir. The airline doesn't take.
No, whether because
carriers.
No, because you have been permitted to carry goods also.
Correct, sir.
You are bound by the Carriers Act to some extent.
Yes,
Provisions of the Carriers Act with modifications, it is there.
Yes,
if that be the case, is it not suppose an insurance provision is provided for the purpose of declaring the contents and the value thereof?
No,
why can't it be covered?
If you declare, sir, the thing is, if you declare it, the airline has only got that the act says this is the amount. SDR of 1,211 or something is to be paid for loss of baggage, for every piece that you lose.
Cost of the baggage.
No, so it works out to a lot. It works out to a lot on the long run. Like I said, even at 75 rupees per SDR. So if you're getting 1,000, you're getting 75,000. So it's not that. Earlier, what used to happen is, if the bag weighed, you checked in the bag, they wrote there were 2 pieces, 60 kilos. It was some 40 rupees per kilo they paid you. So that got covered.
If it comes to the railways,
yes,
when the garage is being taken, you are declaring the value of the article that is being booked.
So for the cargo, yes, sir.
Cargo it is.
Yes, sir. Cargo, yes, sir. Not your personal baggage. There are two separate issues, sir.
No, I thought that that is also not covered.
No, perishables, like we carry perishables, sir. If I don't carry the perishables on time, the contractor loses the money. So he can sue the airline for it, whatever be the contract value. Because perishables are given a fixed time and slot. So you have to carry it at that point of time. Like when you carry gold also, we have a vault on the aircraft to carry gold or diamonds or whatever, which is not declared outside, but the crew come to know because we are told what we are carrying. Even dangerous goods. When we carry dangerous goods, like we all say, I don't know if you know dry ice. You heard of dry ice. No aircraft can carry dry ice more than 5 kilos on the aircraft. There are specifications. Wheelchairs, you cannot, the wheelchair battery cannot go into the cargo compartment.
Sir, I believe one of the cases before the High Court, I think Sridharan sir had conducted that case, if I'm not mistaken. Sir, would you please share this?
You are referring to Mangalore case?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I conducted in the High Court.
Yeah, Yashwant Shenoy was arguing it.
I appeared for some of the claim.
Okay. Because there was another activist also called Yashwant Shenoy.
Yeah,
Sir, he got compensation of 7 crores.
That was not based on Montreal Convention.
No, it was not. He fought it on a different footing, sir. But he got a higher compensation than what the operator was willing to give.
Yes.
Yes.
That is because he had a substantial income.
Income. Correct. Sir. Yes, sir. Income link. Yes.
Even in a motor accident claim, you will get that.
Yes, sir. But the operator was refusing to give him that. No, sir. So that is why he took it to the Supreme Court and he won. Shyam sir, I told you that earlier.
Yes. Now, the issue raised in these cases, which is now pending before the Supreme Court, is whether there is an automatic entitlement of 1 lakh SDR in the case of death.
No, that is this they have only quantified for crew, sir, and passenger, some for passengers also. But we are basically, this came in for crew. Otherwise, the crew never had it was individual insurance by the operator.
I think Sridharan sir was appealing for the passenger, not for the crew, I believe.
No, he said for the passenger, yes.
Oh, I am appearing for some of the crew members also in the Mangalore case.
Mangalore case, okay.
Yes. I appeared for the claimant. Mainly, the court of judgment relates to one of the passengers.
So Ahluwalia's family is also with you.
No,
the co-pilot is not with you.
I don't remember the name of the 2 crew members. I am appearing.
Okay.
Still, the matter is pending before the High Court.
The matter is pending. Yes, I am aware of it. So we keep a track of all the cases because it helps us in the long run. So that is how we decide. So like
these are subjects which are new to us. Therefore, an expert like you could only enlighten us.
Yeah, I agree, sir. I mean, I am also learning every day, sir. As a human being, I am also learning, and Letils has been my learning platform as well. So that's how I'm giving my contribution back, thanking them for what they have done for me. So that is what. So like coming back to what we were discussing is like, so there are many equipments on board the aircraft that help save lives. Like you take there's a digital flight recorder. It records all your parameters, the mechanical parameters on board the aircraft. So in case of an accident, they can decode as to what went wrong, which machine malfunctioned, the engine malfunctioned, or some other component not being the engine but affecting that, or the fuel pump didn't work. It will give you it records 16 parameters. So those parameters are decoded to find out why an accident took place or an incident took place. It depends on how you look at it. If there's death, it's an accident. If there's no death, it's an incident. Like
this has nothing to do with the black box.
That is the black box.
Okay.
The DFDR is the black box, but it is orange in color. It's called the black box because it gives you the bad news. Black depicting the color of death, so that is why it's called the black box. But it is orange in color, and it has got a radio frequency transmitter that it transmits on both the frequency 121.5 and 242 megahertz. The latest one has got a third frequency also, which is the international frequency. So
wherever it is, you can trace it out.
Yes, sir. So like 48 hours at least, that the machine will beep to show its location. And today with latest gadgets and equipment, tracing it is not a big thing. The only, like somebody did ask me about the Malaysian 370, but then that is another subject.
Bermuda Triangle has gone.
No, the Bermuda Triangle, sir, nobody is able to decipher what it is exactly. So we really, like, we'll be speculating if we talk about
No,
it.
if you go by some cinemas, probably some mafia may be managing certain things from there, it appears.
No, I wouldn't take a guess on that. So somebody may sue me.
We'll just get the comments of Ram Kumar sir and we'll go to the interaction section. Ram Kumar sir,
Yes.
all about you.
There's a touch of class in whatever topic Mr. K.V.J. Rao lays his hands on.
Thank you, sir.
This was a real flight into the fascinating field of aviation. The malaise of the system we have seen, the want of timely updating of the rules, where rules are more honored in their breach than observance. We have seen how the crew gets screwed by the DGCA, DGC and other officials. We have also seen the operation breaching by the regulator. All these things, wonderful, wonderful. You are great. Notwithstanding the want of a legal backing, you are doing playing showing miracle.
The man who's in the waters has to learn to swim, sir. So
Yes,
we
definitely.
have to do that.
Mere theoretical knowledge is not enough.
Yes, I agree. I totally agree.
Wonderful, wonderful articulation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ram Kumar sir. Like Rao sir said, black box is not black. It is just like saying Greek is
Orange.
to me. So I'll go over to Ramushan sir.
Really, it's a new area where we are enlightened on the subject. And also, I had the opportunity to see when the things are going on. Even when your Aircraft Act doesn't have more provisions,
Yes, sir.
then give power for making rules, because everything is governed by the rules.
Yes.
Normally no enactment will be governed by the rules.
Correct, sir.
The Act will provide the provisions in order to supplement, and the procedural things will be made by rules. But it
Rules
is
are more comprehensive.
more
More
comprehensive than the section now. So that is how the things are going on. Because I think that the aviation law of 2021 is on the eve, it appears. What I saw from the net, I do not know whether any act has been regulated, taking
nothing.
into all your aspects.
No,
Probably
sir, nothing.
No, is
Sir,
there any law in the imagination of the parliament,
no,
or
sir.
anything pending there?
No, sir, because the operators have more muscle power. Lobbying.
Because most of the cases which you have projected are in respect of the rules providing for the safety for the crew and other thing, and also regarding the operative mechanism.
Yes, sir.
But we are on the other aspect. Suppose certain violation, is there any provision in the Aircraft Act
Yes.
delicensing those?
Yes, sir.
Huh?
Yes, sir. There are penalties provided.
No, it is not a question of penalty. But the penalty, because as far as India is concerned, as a lawyer, as a judge, what I understood is there is no dearth of laws here.
Yes, sir.
For each and every subject,
Yes,
you have got a law.
Yes, sir.
But whether it is being properly implemented in its true spirit is a question.
Yes, sir.
And which is a mechanism, regulation mechanism is, even in the environmental law also, what I find is, when you go through the provisions, there are laws are there.
Yeah.
But there is no, regulators are also there. But these regulators are not implementing it in the proper way.
That is what is lacking,
the whole
sir.
difficulty is, whatever directions you give, they will say that the infrastructure facility, the lack of staff, all those are the general excuses that is being coming from the regulators.
Yes, sir.
So these are all the areas where I think the government will have to take note of it and find out the lacunas and then make more stringent. Is there any prosecution? Because I find that penalties. But Aircraft Act doesn't. I do not know where you will have to file a suit, etc. Where you will have to file a.
No, sir. If you can, I'll be very honest with you. If you can.
Not that the Aircraft Act. I had just this thing. Penalties are provided.
Yes, sir.
How the method of cognizance of offence that is committed?
The competent authority under the Act.
It is not the competent. No, that the difficulty is not there. When it comes to the judicial side, you must have some, because everybody cannot go for a private complaint. Suppose if it is made as a cognizable offence, if there is a provision provided there, probably certain prosecutions can be possible on the prosecuting agency, which have some expertise on these fields will be required, because just like
Sir.
cybercrime came,
Sir,
some expertise will also be there, because I don't find anything there.
sir, if you,
CRPC will govern.
No,
Ordinary.
for everything you will have to go for a private complaint.
Not,
yeah.
no,
sir.
if it is cognizable,
No, for
and
that, no, and I don't find anything in the act. But
Sir,
you
can
will have to
I-
go by the schedule.
Can I give you a little background?
yes,
When those 750 flights took place and we were complaining about it, civility, as I said, did not work. We went on the civil side. We had no choice, but I took it on the criminal side. And
No, civil side also, what I found from the Aircraft Act is 1934. That is old act.
Old act, sir. There is nothing new.
Nothing new.
No, not much amendments to it. Sir.
No much amendments also.
No, sir.
And there also only certain types of litigations before the civil code has been barred.
Correct, sir.
So you will have to only go by those provisions and also by the rules. And
Yes,
if as we understood from your side, everything is by the regulator. They are the masters.
Correct, sir. So that is why, sir, I used the Premraj sir will agree with me. The Indian Institute of Chartered Accountants versus Vimal Kumar Surana. It gave us the window to take it on to the criminal side.
relief.
Yes. No, but there, sir, the thing is, even there, the police are managed. Sir, now they've issued a contempt notice right now to the police for not filing the report. But the fact remains is that the whole system is corrupted, sir. And I take responsibility, at least for the word that I use as corruption. I take responsibility for it. So the whole system is corrupted. You see, so I have taken it onto the criminal side.
No, I don't say, Mr. Rao, that the system is corrupt. But the person who is manning it may be corrupt. So you will have to find out the persons.
To me, he's the system, sir.
Maybe.
To me, he's the system. So, like, I go by that. Because what has happened? So what happened? Because no timely action was taken, sir.
Who corrupted whom is the
the violations continue even today.
That is because I think there are a lot of lacunas in the act itself. That will have to be revamped and new.
Sir, the Bombay High Court chastised me for challenging the power of the DGCA. They said, let's not take rigid stands.
No, because the rule provides everything. There is a whole difficulty when it comes to the court.
Yeah. Even the rule does not, like I said, we said which is the rule of the or the act which says that you can frame medical rules for me. So then you will have to go by the standing orders, this thing, because all these things related to service conditions. Exactly, sir. That also we fought and we won in the Bombay High Court. We won in the Supreme Court also, sir. Section 9A can't be violated.
No, whether you have got any provision for going to the industrial dispute to the labor court or international tribunal.
No, there is, sir. But then what will happen is the regional labor commissioner will tell me this is a DGCA issue, so you take it up with the DGCA.
No, suppose the DGCA is not doing it. It will become
it will go into reference, and you know how long the reference will be heard. So that becomes the next.
Because we cannot say that if this is a position, I don't think that there is no law, but it is not being properly followed, or that is not being try to be followed, because
that is why, sir, like if any of the crew is found under the influence of alcohol, I categorically tell them that you're liable under 336. You're endangering somebody's life. And the Delhi High Court has come down heavily on one pilot, heavily, because he not only refused to undergo the breathalyzer, he tried to antedate it, but like the operator sitting quiet. His license was suspended for 5 years. Can you imagine, sir, that an employee's captain's license is suspended for 5 years, and
allowing that person to drive? Or
yes, and no, sir, he's allowed to work in Air India. Now you tell me, like, if I'm a pilot and I can't fly the aircraft, why should I be working for Air India, or why should I be working for an operator? Correct. For 5 years, you can't utilize my service. So he comes to work, collects his salary. So what is the punishment? So where is the punishment, sir?
Correct.
It's a nice opening.
Where is the deterrent? There is no deterrent, sir.
You show me the man, I will show you
I'll show you the
the
blow.
No,
Correct, sir. I agree with you, sir.
No, in fact, somebody will have to take class on the Aircraft Act and the rules and find out what are all the lacunas and how these have to be rectified in tune with the development that is happening on account of the lack of rules. I think that is high time for us to go into those aspects.
Sir, Justice Ramakrishnan, let me tell you, sir, I have moved every forum on my own with my own money. And I've got a lawyer today who's fighting things for me pro bono. And just like you all said, he said, fighting your cases, I'm coming to know what aviation is in India.
on the ground.
On the ground. So it is a fight that is going on every day. I am fighting the system. I mean, there's a lot of pressure coming on to me for a lot of things that I'm exposing, but then I have to live with it. It comes with the territory.
I find from the side that aviation laws of 2021, that is the reason I want to know whether anything in the annual of the parliament.
No, sir, nothing is
there. Of the parliament.
No, sir, no, sir. They are only interested, I mean, at this point of time, Parliament is only looking to sell off one operator.
No, those things will be covered by the aircraft regulation of transfer, etc., etc.
Yes,
nothing more.
Yes,
there is some other act is also in 1972 or something like that. Yes. 1972 or something like that. So that will be covering those things. Just like bank nationalization came.
Correct, sir.
There was an act was enacted for the purpose of regulating the transfers, etc., etc.
Exactly, sir. Exactly, sir.
Thank you, Ramesh.
Thank you very much. Nice.
Thank you, sir. Now we'll go to Girdhar, sir. Girdhar, sir, your comments.
Thank you, Mr. K.V.J. I am from Madras High Court. It was very illuminating, as most of us don't know anything in this area. Just as an offer, in case you want pro bono service or representation in Chennai, please contact me. I'll be happy to do those cases pro bono and therefore learn.
Much obliged, sir. Much obliged.
You can get my contacts from Shyam.
Shyam, sir, I'll take it, sir. No problem.
You have a pro bono lawyer in Madras.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I just noticed after Justice Ramakrishnan's intervention that there are only 19 operative provisions in the
in the Act.
Aircraft Act.
Yes.
And there are 2 penal provisions and 1 penal provision, and they are just 6 months or fine of 3,000 rupees and 3 months fine of 1,000 rupees.
We've been asking
that too, only the central government makes provision in the rules, but I have not yet gone into the rules to see it. Definitely it has to be advanced. 1934, today we are in 2021. I think it may be a good idea for some legal luminaries like Shyam and Justice Ramakrishnan to get together a committee, maybe under if you and to update it, we can look at aircraft acts in other countries like US and Europe and so on, and put pressure on the government to update it.
No, I don't think that even the law commissions have not taken care of these areas.
Exactly.
It appears. I think.
Yeah, exactly. Because
it can be referred to, because the government can refer to the law commission to go into those aspects and also.
Yeah, maybe we should.
That will be better, because in the going your committee, because Justice Krishna committee has come on this thing. So
sir, since we are talking of policy, now look at the fallacy in this policy. The DGCA says if you own 5 aircrafts and you fly for 5 years, you can operate international flights. But if you own 22 aircrafts, you can immediately start flying international.
Without any experience.
Yes. So, I mean, where does this criteria come from, sir?
Decent amendment, no?
That is how Kingfisher went and bought Deccan Airways after 5 years so that he could start his international operations.
No, whole difficulty arises is the aviation ministry, suppose some proposal goes, they are
as the name suggests.
This thing, that's all.
So that's what I'm saying, sir. Somebody has to make rules. What is it? That if I own 5 aircrafts, then I have to wait for 5 years to operate internationally. But if I buy 22 aircrafts, I can start the operation the next morning.
Do a Kingfisher operation.
Yeah, so that is what I'm saying. I said, what I'm saying is, let us be consistent in what we say. There is the problem is there is no like we had the meeting with the Director General Naseem Zaidi. He was very much in favor with us, but the next guy comes in. He says, no, he thought that way. I'm not thinking that way.
Why don't you move the law commission?
No, law commission, I think private person cannot directly move. Either the Supreme Court will have to give a reference to the law commission to frame certain things and place before the government, or the government themselves will have to address the law commission to have certain issues as to how new law on a new subject can be possible. Or otherwise, your private bill, etc., depending upon the power of the MP or power of the person who is moving it to get it done.
I'll give you a simple thing, sir. We are fighting today in Parliament. They've taken it up and they've saying, like in India, the aircrafts are registered. The registration starts with VT, and then it's a three-letter suffix, either by alphanumeric or whatever. Now VT used to stand for Viceroy's territory. So today everybody is saying, why are we still continuing with that? But the fact remains is, what difference does it make? Because you no more are identifying yourself as Viceroy's territory.
And not that, just like the Motor Vehicles Act provides for registration, regulating authorities for registration, is there any such provisions available or any procedure available?
DGC has to register.
DGC an authority. Whether that authority is also not provided under the Act, but it's only by rules. By rules.
Yeah, they can only they can register the aircraft. Nobody else can register the aircraft in India, sir. So that's exactly what I'm trying to come to, sir. Everything is so bureaucratic in its setup that it becomes really difficult to break through to it. And anybody who tries it is either is Don Quixote or, like, he's a madman.
Correct, sir. Vijay?
Just more, there's so much of technical aspects in all these things. And
no, we are on the legal aspect, Mr. Vijay. Just like how this will have to be modified and how this can be brought within the legal framework is the what do you call the dilemma that is being projected by Rao.
Sir, when you said that there is a law on the annual on 2021, I immediately checked net on the mobile. That's a 2021 edition of 1934 Act.
That is something is that is what I find also. But when I clicked for that, I didn't get any.
It'll be for some minor amendments which will suit the operators. Any amendment is brought only to suit the operators. It is never brought to regulate, actually regulate. It's like somebody wants something done, so they want it done, so that thing will be incorporated. If the lobbying is good, then the lobbying comes down to the DGC. The DGC sends in the amendment because it has the powers to make the rule and submit it to Parliament. So they use that act and they go there under that act.
Sir, one doubt I have is that all these private airlines always give a picture of suffering a lot of financial losses every quarter.
Yes, sir.
It more looks like they are doing more service by taking flights all across India without having enough profit. So therefore, too much of regulations is going to curtail their profit or increase their loss. Is one factor which is, I mean, for somebody who is not concerned with that, this is a perception that we have.
Vijay, restrictions dealing with the safety, I don't think that if it is suppose aviation environment or other aspects like safety of the people
cost is not the factor.
Cost should not be the factor. Health conditions that has been provided for the persons to
also,
be carried.
sir, none of the airlines are showing their books. Vijay, sir, let me tell you, none of the airlines are showing their books.
Vijay also looking at the angle of a business, of aircraft business. No, that should not be the policy of the government. I don't agree with that on that.
No, I'm not saying that's a policy, but see, the perception of somebody like me while reading newspaper is that too much of regulation is going to hit these private airlines, which are far and few in the present scenario. We have about 4 or 5 active private airlines, and the most connected one are Indigo and SpiceJet. Other than that, Go Air is a little better off. Other than that, 3 airlines we don't have too much of. And if you bring in too much of regulations, that's a picture that we have from reading the business standard.
Vijay, the whole difficulty is, can you get registration in a foreign country for your aircraft if you are not following their rules? If you go by the regulations there, I think it is more stringent than the things.
Sir,
Rao may be knowing about it.
Sir,
Everything is strict.
the FAA has downgraded DGCA n number of times, sir, for not being up to the mark.
No, my doubt, as I'm drifting from how far are they genuine in their books while projecting loss is what I have.
That's exactly what I'm saying, sir. We have not seen the books. They don't show the books to anybody. And let me tell you, Vijay sir, show me one businessman who wants to run a business with 500 crores loss every year. He will fold up and go home. If he's not making money, he will fold up and go home.
In fact, they are buying more aircraft.
Exactly. So if you're a loss-making company, why are you buying? Sir, and that is what, like, the amendment that I came. Now what is happening is, sir, now I'll tell you. SpiceJet wants to start long-range flights to the US, but does not want to provide bunkers for its crew to rest. And that is where amendments come in to facilitate operators. And if you take this to the foreign regulator, we get saying that, why are you washing your dirty linen in a foreign country? But then if my mother is not feeding me, at least she should let me beg, no? Like Vijay sir, as they say in Telugu, Amma bojna ava buva pettadu, aduku tinnavadu. So then
you won't you will not allow them to take also.
So then
dog in the manger.
Exactly. So that is where the whole problem is, sir. That is what I'm fighting, and that is what I and a few of our colleagues are fighting.
Oh, that is how the bureaucracy, even the persons who are in the employment also say, you won't eat and you will not allow to eat to promote corruption sometimes.
Yeah.
The crew are simply forgotten.
Suppose a strict officer comes. This is a comment normally comes from the lower strata,
Class.
where they want this to be promoted or part of it at least.
No, so there are issues, sir. Vijay sir, I totally agree with you, but nobody, like today, Jet Air has collapsed. Correct? Yes. Sir, the talk going on is who gave security clearance to Jet Air to operate in India. That is a conundrum that is not being answered even in Parliament.
These safety regulations are I think the international conventions should be applicable to India.
Yes, sir. We are governed, sir. That is what I just said. The FAA, which is the regulatory authority of the US, has downgraded DGCA, which is our regulator, saying that you're not up to the mark. In fact, they have commented that your staff is not capable because, sir, they might have an engineering degree, but they don't know anything about aviation.
I think there is a course on aviation engineering. You'll have to select persons who are having that degree.
Sir, aeronautical engineering is there, sir. But then what happens? What happens is, sir, once I get into the government service, then the babudam sets in, sir. Application of mind is not there.
The whole difficulty is more of the aviation engineering people are not getting any employment. They are going as a mechanical engineer somewhere or doing some other work.
Yeah, you can't help it, sir.
Process service.
Sir, I think we have PJ Naidu with a question. Naidu sir, can you just unmute?
Yes, sir. Sir, thank you so much. You have given and even a very overview of this particular thing. My understanding on this particular thing is with respect to whatever the violations which has been done by any particular operator, and then we are attributing something to the DGCA, which is the governing body for India. And as far as International Civil Aviation Organization is concerned, under the Chicago Convention 1944, where they have got one particular words called SARPs, that is standard and recommended practices, which has to be followed by every regulator or every authority of any particular country. If they are not going to follow, and that particular country's the authority would be taken to the task, right? How they are going to decide about what is standard practices and what is recommended practices? Standard is, of course, which they are supposed mandatory to be followed. Recommended practices are supposed to be followed by weighing the checks and balances of the different countries' standards, right? So as far as standards are concerned, how they are going to determine, of course, time to time they are going to determine, ICAO has got what we have a parliament, the same thing, General Council, General Assembly type is there for the
Correct.
ICAO is also there.
Yes.
What did they do is they have got about 36 member panel, and which has been that would be represented by about 190 states, out of which according to their ability of participating in the flight operations, etc., they will be the members, and on perennial basis, that for 3 years, right? And they are going to decide what is to be followed, and what is the standard practices, and what is the recommended practices. If any country is not able to follow it, whatever by the reasons may be, then ICAO is going to get into the picture.
Yes.
The reason being, what they have cited there under the Chicago Convention is, it is not you, even if you are not going to follow in your own country, it is your people or your aircraft or your your territory is going to affect it. But it is other way around, that see, the aeroplane, which the moment it is going to take off, you are going to enter into somebody else's sovereign territory. Then that means that you are going to affect somebody else countries. You don't have any such right. However rules, maybe you are complacent with your own rules, with your own acts, we may not be care for it. But then what about our people and our territorial property, etc.? That's the reason the ICAO has taken it very, very seriously on this. I'm sure many of you might have noticed in the last year, what happened was, in the Pakistan, the aircraft is about to land. The pilots, what they have done is, instead of doing for the checklist in the sense that one has to hold the operate the flight, and the other one has to go for the look around, and then seeing the what is to be done, what next to be, what is the next decision to be taken. And instead of that, what did they do? They have done, they were talking about the COVID effect on the Pakistan, etc., due to which what happened was the aircraft was crashed, and the fatalities were about 100 odd members. Then it was a proper audit was taken place. Then they thought that yes, the Pakistani government organization, like what DGCA, what we have for the Pakistan authority, they were not have properly conducting the examinations for the pilots, and there might be a rampant corruption in awarding the license to these particular pilots. That hence this particular mishaps have happened. Otherwise, no pilot could have done such a blunder. Not even mistake they have said, but they said that it's a blunder which they have committed. So then what happened is, immediately the Pakistani government has reacted upon it and stated that yes, it was not supposed to be accepted by whatsoever be the reasons, and accordingly they have cancelled about 100 odd pilots licenses, right? So why were they afraid? See, if I'm doing it for my own country, it's fine. If suppose DGCA is going to do it, keep violating those things, and then who is going to get affected at the end, right? Let's say an American aeroplane comes to India, and American pilot comes to India, and he is not well versed with our own ATC people's terminology, right? And he misunderstands and he misreads it, and instead of taking right or left, or maybe the way in which we pronounce it, maybe they pronounce it in differently, right? The same wordings. So all those things are supposed to be cared for it. That's where we recognize their licenses, they recognize our licenses. It is a reciprocity, basically, to understand each other's needs, right? And not only that, the people who are going to get suffered, who, in every aeroplane, any citizen can travel easily, either Indian citizen or American citizen. Nevertheless, the problem is that then unless otherwise they are not following a standard rules, and how can we rely upon a particular airline, right? So I think that is the one which is to be suppose DGCA is not following. I'm not very well aware about what sir has stated the facts. 750 flights have been violated the rules of the particularly the flights which are going to the Australia, either for Melbourne and Sydney. By then, when these flights were started, I was almost out of that particular job. But then what is my my understanding would be, why can't we make some sort of representation to the ICAO, or why that Australian government is quite lenient, not observing while giving such permission to Indian carrier to that particular country. They could have objected to it, even if they have not. And it is not that, see, no, it's government and maybe profit oriented or economy oriented. I may agree with that part, but then the other part of it, and any Rao sir's legal concerns, maybe you can always raise it in an appropriate forum. Maybe people are going to take it. Either ICAO is the right body to take it up, right? Or maybe different countries like, European Union countries. Or
Naidu sir,
maybe,
can I just stop you for a minute, Naidu sir?
Yes, yes, yes.
I took up this matter with CASA, the Australian authorities. Okay. My colleague took it up. He got terminated. Okay. We went to court. The first question that the honorable bench asked us is, why did you wash your dirty linen in Australia? And he refused to hear the matter. Now you tell me. Okay. Because of the lackadaisical attitude of DGCA, all other regulators have started ramp inspection. I don't know if you're familiar with ramp inspection, but if a flight lands into Frankfurt, the Frankfurt authorities came and questioned us on flight safety matters. They inspected the aircraft, and if they found that one cabinet was out or one cart was not functioning or this, they have sent reports. But at the end of the day, Naidu sir, if my regulator is not up to the mark, how many times can I go out? There are you are saying take it up with ICAO. We have sent mails to you name the authority, and ultimately I took it to the Bombay High Court, and the Bombay High Court in its written order has said from 2010 to 2013 they have pointed out violations. So now let us see what is happening from 2014 to 17. Sir, every statement that I make, sir, I do not open my mouth till I have the document in my hand. If I'm giving you a simple example. Now I showed you the RTI reply from DGCA that no dispensation was given for 2 landings into Australia. All Air India flights into Australia operated with 2 landings for the cabin crew. The operating crew got only 1 landing. Sir, we have documented it. I am very particular. I am very particular in what I say. I'm very particular in what I do. Unless I have the document, I work for it. I file my RTIs. I get my replies. I get others to file RTIs. Because now the High Court is coming heavily on one person filing 200 RTIs, saying that you have got no other work. So now what do? So I've delegated it to 10 people. Okay. Sir, we have taken it up in every forum that needs to be taken up. We have written to FAA, we have written to CA, we have written to EASA, we have written to ICAO. Ultimately, understand one thing, sir. On the top, it's the politics that matters. So it is never that we have not. My first approach is always civil, sir. I will send you a chronology of this Australian operations, where we met DGC and they said, yes, we made a mistake by issuing the circular. And they said they will revoke it, and they didn't revoke it. I flew down to Delhi to meet the DGC officers on a holiday. So Naidu sir, anything that I say, unless I have the document in my hand, I don't open my mouth. So everything that is why I have put the documents. I'll send you the PowerPoint. I prepared the PowerPoint. I'll send it to you. Every document, every statement that I have made is documented. No, the DGCA does not want to listen to the tribunals. Sir, you like you said, you left Air India, but you were in the narrow body. I mean, in the narrow body, correct? You still flew with 4 on the 737, and right, 4 were minimum. Off-wing doors had the crew seat. Correct. But did we have crew?
Yes, you're right, sir. You're right.
That is a violation. You think the manufacturer is stupidly giving you that seat there? That is an exit. It has to be manned. Today we are leaving it on a passenger. And then what does the DGCA say? See that nobody over 65 sits there. See that nobody below 12 sits near that exit. Correct?
Yes.
And they say that if somebody is sitting, you shift him, bring an able body for takeoff and landing. Why are we doing all that? Instead of doing all that, you simply have a crew there. There are 2 seats on each side. Instead of 2 crew, at least have 1 crew, no?
You will be losing 4 seats.
No, sir. Those seats can't be. No, sir. Those seats can't be occupied by passengers, sir.
Passengers.
Those seats can't be occupied by passengers.
No, because no, they are providing that in that area. Because the emergency exit, the air hostess will come and say, these are all the methods we will have to do it.
Exactly,
if
sir.
any difficulty, we will come and help you.
Correct,
So,
sir. So
no, if your thing is adopted that one person will not be provided in that seat to do it, then aircraft will be losing one seat. Thereby, loss will be caused to the company.
yes, sir. That is exactly my contention from the first point itself, sir. That cost is taking care of flight safety, and we are only going to react. We are not going to be proactive. My concern is that are we going to be proactive or are we going to be reactive in flight safety matters? Any other matters, sir, it doesn't concern us. But at least with flight safety, let's not play games. That's all is what my contention is, sir. Nothing beyond that.
Sir, we'll take one more question from Girdhar, sir. He has just,
Yes, sir.
I just have one comment and a question, sir.
Yes, sir.
I just noticed that there's an Aircraft Amendment Act of 2020 which
Yes.
grants statutory recognition to the DGCA and enhances penalty. It also
Yes.
introduces a section by which all these offences can be compounded, notwithstanding anything under the CRPC. That's just my comment.
Yes.
No, that is also bad according to, because
Surely.
if it is a compoundable, if it
Surely.
becomes compoundable, people will pay off and go.
Exactly. And the airline companies will put heavy pressure. So it's not just politics, it's more economics at
Yes,
work.
sir. I agree with you, sir.
Yes.
I agree with you, sir.
My question is this. See, right now we are looking at unmanned aerial flights and drones. And recently some rules have been introduced regarding unmanned drones.
Drones.
Yeah.
Yes.
Any updates on that, sir?
Nothing, sir. See, sir, this is a comment that I'm making purely by myself. We are at war with ourselves every day, sir. So what happens is drones, people are the government is wary that drones can be misused for a lot of things.
Yes.
So a lot of regulation is coming in and it will come in and it needs to come in, sir. See, because we are a country where you can't have drones delivering pizza. Like when you cannot control 2 cars on the road, imagine controlling drones. I mean, you first need to get your fundamentals in place, Girdhar sir, before we go ahead with anything. You see, the drones came in because the movie people brought in the drones actually in the beginning for their shooting. And then that became a fad and everybody started buying the drones. Now, the government also has placed restrictions on the megahertz transmission of the drones. Like if it goes beyond that megahertz, you can't bring it into India. Even the toys that are coming in today, those helicopters and all those things, they are actually by law not are banned, sir. Like I said, we act more in the breach than following the law. So this is the problem, sir. I totally agree with you, sir.
Thank you, Girdhar sir. I think one question that is in the chat box, and then we'll go directly to Prem. I found Ramachandra Desu. He's here. Can you unmute, sir? He is retired from Air Force and having postgraduate diploma in aviation and air transport. Yes, sir. Please.
Good morning, sir. And it's a very interesting topic you have taken today.
Thank you.
And a lot of information Sri Raju sir has revealed. And it is unfortunate, actually. Even I know some of the facts before us is really troubling. It is a flight safety 100%. Definitely, there is no doubt about it. The operators are interested only money. Revenue is required. Even sometimes they arrange the seats such a way in a cramped way. The flight safety cannot be compromised at any cost. So in this direction, he has already taken a lot of efforts. I do not know why the courts and authorities are silent on this. I am also surprised. That's the reason I also put in chat box, if anything is required from my side at Bangalore, I am ready to extend my help to him.
Thank you.
Now,
Very
sir,
much,
now
thank you, sir.
from all corners of the country, you got support. So you need
Yes,
not
sir,
worry.
thank you,
Just
sir.
identify the place. We have the person to deal with that.
Yes, sir. Thank
So
you, sir.
as we come to the end of the 210 session, any further extents of the session, I stand at the risk of providing lunch to Ramakrishnan, sir, which I don't want to. So, So what I'll do is let us.
Don't delay his lunch.
No, no, absolutely not. Absolutely not. That was the arrangement we made interstate that if it
No, that is because I have got only a smaller intestine now because of the ulcer operation already undergone. So I cannot starve my stomach for a longer period.
Absolutely, absolutely. Further queries, and anyway, Rao sir is part and parcel of our family. He'll be there, and we hope to have you in the platform throughout.
No, Mr. Shyam Padman, it is high time for us to have somebody in the legal circle who are dealing with these subjects, so that they can throw light as to what are all the lacuna in the existing acts and how this
deficiencies.
Now know the practical reality. We would like to put the legal.
So probably Rao may be knowing who are all the persons in Bombay dealing with these aircraft cases. Even maybe they are appearing for the aircrafts. They may be knowing about it. At least when you are asking them to take a class, they may say what are all the things are there, what is the improvement required for that.
But then some of them are retainers for other operators. So I don't know whether they'll come up.
I'll give you a better option or a different option. Like many of our suggestions came in. You can collate things and we can identify persons who will take it up before the right forum and let us do something constructive also. In the sense, just
that also can be possible.
sitting together and wailing or discussing and deliberating, we can also take proactive steps for augmenting the justice dispensation machinery. That is also possible. So I think
PAL can be possible. I think.
Yeah.
Sir, my basic problem is, sir, the person who conducted these violations, correct? Get the DGCA approves that person's appointment as a director flight safety.
Let us follow.
And then no, I am just saying that you are endangering life. That is going to continue. There is no deterrent to that. No,
what he says is violator himself become a regulator.
Then what do we do?
Who will police the police?
Who will police? Exactly, sir. That is where it's come down to.
Sir, I understand. So, there will be ways and means, sir. If you think about that, we have got so many luminaries, so many academicians, so many eminent lawyers in this platform. Let us put our heads together. Maybe we'll be able to find out a way, not only for this issue, but all those nagging issues by which we can make this legal environment much more congenial, comfortable, and worthwhile for everybody, effective for everybody.
And now that's because I'm in a lighter way, I'm saying an accident occurs in a road. 279 is not a compoundable offense. But if something happens in the air, as Giridhar was putting it, it becomes a compoundable offense sometimes.
Correct, sir. It is. It is. That is exactly what. Sir, the fact that you violated the law invokes 336 straight away.
Sometimes you don't even get your ashes for by the bone or something like that for
exactly. You don't get this thing. You don't get, sir. Don't get. Like the crash that took place at Bombay on New Year's Eve, 1980. Ashoka. So the fish ate the bodies. The fishes ate the bodies.
Yes.
My father was posted at the mortuary. He's saying we didn't know what was what. We just it came to a stage. We said, please take this piece and think it is your family and do your last rituals.
One couldn't identify between bolts and bones.
Yes, that's true. So that it happens, sir. I totally.
Sir, as we come to the end of the 210th session, profusely thank our own family member who has been part and parcel of this extended Littles family, K.V.J. Rao sir, for that wonderful exposition of, I would say, more of the grievances on the side of the crew than the rules and regulations, because that is one of the approaches by which an issue could be dealt with. Instead of just giving a mechanical reproduction of the data that is available, we had we felt the emotions behind the statements made. And like he said, he does not speak without the records. And on the record, for the record, I'd say, thank you very much, sir. And this is recorded. It will be made available to you. And Ram Kumar, sir, thank you very much. Ramashan, sir, thank you very much. And for the concluding remarks, may I request Prem.
Well, that was an erudite articulation, which really at least captured me, I would say, all through.
Thank you, sir.
And I need to say that Mr. Rao, he has an in-depth knowledge, not only of the aviation laws, but also all the prevalent laws and the relevant case laws, much more than 95% of the lawyers and judges. So I have just two small doubts.
I may not be allowed in the next session on letils.
Definition of an aircraft
Yes, sir.
under section 2 of this
SPA,
Statute of
aircraft
Aviation.
Act.
You can see any machine which derives support from the atmospheric reaction, which includes balloons and kites,
Yes, sir.
right?
Yes.
And section 11 postulates whoever flies an aircraft in a negligent manner, he shall be punished with imprisonment and fine. It's like that. So even a negligent flying of a balloon or even a kite, that can get you prosecuted.
Correct.
Under section 11. That's aspect number 1. Now the second thing, as I have pointed out in one of the sessions in that students, where you lecture to the students. See, not only the provisions of the NDPS Act. Now first come to the NDPS Act, you can see section 2 defines conveyance includes an aircraft. Section 49 of the statute, which deals with the power to stop and search a conveyance, that really states that any authorized officer under section 42, if he has a reason to suspect any conveyance is used for the transport of any contraband under that statute, he can stop that conveyance, where especially the statute says if it is an aircraft, he can compel that aircraft to land. And if it becomes necessary to stop that aircraft,
You can even open fire.
we can fire that aircraft. Likewise, you can see section 2, 1A of the Customs Act, which again defines the aircraft.
Yes.
And section 2, clause 9 defines a conveyance to include an aircraft.
Yes.
Section 106 of this act, which deals again with the power to stop and search the conveyance, says that a proper officer, if he has a reason to believe that an aircraft is used in smuggling of the goods, first he may compel it to land.
Correct.
If he thinks it necessary, it shall be lawful. Because the first thing what he is going to do is, he is going to chase, and thereafter a gun is fired as a signal. And then if the aircraft fails to land, the aircraft can be fired upon.
Brought down. Yes.
Now kindly see, sir, as Justice Ramakrishnan put it, it's the rules. Aircraft rules is having much significance. Why? Because you are having section 13 and section 14, which says the rules are also subject to the, it has to be laid before the parliament.
Parliament. Yes.
Not unlike the other statutes. And kindly see, rule 141 of the rules, that would postulate that a pilot who is in command, he has the entire disposition of that aircraft when he is in command. That means he can decide, even if a gunshot is fired, he can decide whether to land or not.
Yes, sir.
So kindly see, sir, this seems to be quite interesting. And these laws, all these laws, including of the Aircraft Act, it has stood the test of time also.
Yes.
Anyway, thank you, sir, for that brilliant address.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Prem. Next week, we might have a 5-day Saturday.
Whether Prem says any change is required or not required, because it tests the time.
See,
Because test the time can in 2 ways. Because his test the time from 1934 till today, nothing untoward things happen, it goes on well. Or it requires any modification in respect of certain things which have been lacunas are there.
maybe let me ask you like this. How many cases under section 11 of the Aircraft Act you have seen?
No, probably nobody knows about it. Only because Rao says that there are violations, how it is been dealt with.
No, because there are hardly very few cases. Number one, of course, because see, with the technological advances, with the societal changes, law cannot afford to stand still. Law cannot afford to stand still. Of course, changes are required, modifications are required, amendments are required, and now we have seen the drones. As Ms. Rao has put it, you have the rules for this unmanned aircraft, right?
Correct.
It has come and it has been notified in the Gazette also, right?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
So, of course, it is subject to change. But my question again is, see, Aircraft Act pertains to 1934. See the Customs Act of 62. See the NDPS Act of 85.
No, that has been amended later.
Shoot an aircraft. Kindly see the legislative intent. Because this is
no whole difficulty is they are not interdependent. That is also there. Because you will have to get some permission or something like that.
No. It's not interdependent. Kindly see section 49. Never. You don't need any permission because officer who is authorized under section 42, he has all the rights.
You should have a gun with you. That's all.
Our officer under section.
Next week, we might, this month, in the coming weekends, we might have Friday, Saturday, and Sundays. So that the lockdown is going on, almost vacations are going on at different places. We'll try to have it. And the next weekend, we have one of the speakers is Justice K. Kannan, who is a former judge of the High Court of Punjab.
He's a good speaker.
Yes, and also Justice S. Nagamuthu sir, senior advocate of Supreme Court, and who is a family member. I mean, both of them had addressed this early. So next week we'll have that. So as we come to special thanks to Kodak Sridharan sir, Giridhar sir, and all of the wonderful persons who interacted, had their constructive inputs, and special thanks to Justice V. Ram Kumar sir and Justice Ramashan sir. As always, both of you have been the pillars of support for this Letils platform. And on this momentous day of 210th session, let us be proud of ourselves that we kept ourselves engaged during these trying times, engaging in intellectual debates and interactions and empowerment, of course. And once again, thank you very much, Rao sir and Reghu Kumar sir, for that splendid introduction with that anecdote. And the other case you said you have conducted has been reported in CPJ. It is in Consumer Protection Journal. It is already reported regarding the case you mentioned you conducted before the State Commission. It's a reported decision. I shall share it with the participants. So till we meet again, probably next Friday, not Saturday. But anyway, we'll keep you posted whether it's Friday or Saturday. Sunday is already fixed. It is Justice Kannan sir and Justice Nagamuthu sir. Friday, we'll say Justice Giri, senior advocate of Supreme Court, has agreed to do the introductory remarks on Friday. We'll discuss and finalize. We'll keep you posted on that. So till then, please do take care and stay safe. Thank you.